So in today's tutorial, we're going to look at configuring a DAW, or digital audio workstation. There are many settings that need to be configured before the recording starts. Some of the things we're going to be looking at is buffer size, sample rate, bit depth, and these are all things that go into getting the best digital quality from your recordings. The last thing you really need to do is to start tweaking and configuring out your DAW before you start recording. A lot of times that musical muse will hit you and you want to dig right in. Many people go so far as to create templates. And these templates are just basically all these configurations set up ahead of time. You can configure the amount of tracks you want to start with, whether they're software tracks, audio tracks, guitar tracks, drum tracks, and get that all set up and tweaked the way you like it. So when you're ready to go, all you have to do is select your template and start recording. So let's take a look at these settings now. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is buffer size. What the buffer size really is the queue of samples that are being read from disk or written to disk. And it's a balance, right? Because the larger the buffer, the less often data has to be read from disk or written to disk. The shorter the buffer, the more often exchange of data happens. Now, the thing to remember about computers is that your computer's hard drive is probably the slowest piece of the puzzle here. It's going to introduce the most latency. Why? Because in most cases, it's a mechanical disk. It spins around and data has to be found and written back. Certainly with SSDs and flash, it becomes faster, and that's great, but there's still a latency introduced to that because it still has to find a space on disk to read and write from. Okay, so where can we adjust the buffer size? So in Logic, we go to Preferences, Audio, I/O buffer size. So here we can see that mine is set for 128, and that's the setting that I use when I record music. I want to keep that latency here down as small as possible. Once I record all my tracks, and MIDI tracks that have to be rendered out, and start manipulating my digital audio, what will happen is the amount of time necessary to read and write data from disk is going to create digital glitches. You'll hear your music skip. So what you can do is you can increase the buffer size, 1024, depending on how much data is being processed. The downside to that is it increases latency tremendously, and it's very difficult to try to record back with that type of latency. As you can see here, by setting it to 1024, we've increased the latency to 51 milliseconds, and in 51 milliseconds that definitely gets into that delay range, and that would be perceptible to the person that's trying to record information. So we want to keep the buffer low while recording, and then we can increase it higher while we're processing or editing our digital audio. So the other thing that we have to be concerned about is bit rate or bit depth, and that's the amount of data that's collected over a given period of time. In the early days of digital audio recording, disk space was very expensive. Typically, a 1 gig drive would cost you $1,000. Now today prices have dropped down, but the larger the bit rate, the wider the dynamic range. So if you can record in 24-bit, that's great. The gold standard again is digital audio on CD, right? So it's 44.1 kilohertz, 16-bit. So in Logic, where can we find this information? Well, great. So the first thing we're going to do is on a project basis, we can set the various different sample rates. So we go to Audio here under Project Settings, and here goes sample rate right off of here, and we can select 44.1 kilohertz, 48 kilohertz. The higher up you go, the better the resolution of your digital audio. The other place that we have to look is, again, back in Preferences, and if you remember, I said it's spread out all over the place. So if we go to Audio and we go to General, here we go, we can select 24-bit recording. So that's where you set sample rate and bit depth. So those are the three topics that we mentioned earlier. So the last thing I want to talk about is setting up templates. What I have here is a bunch of tracks that I've already set up. Okay, so I have my drum track, I have a couple guitar tracks, a bass track, a couple MIDI tracks, an organ track, and a piano, and then a vocal track. And so this way I have everything set up so that I can instantly, depending on where the musical idea comes from, I can instantly start recording. I've set up a drum track across the top. So on my drum track, what I did was I recorded a 2-bar MIDI track. I can change the color of this. showing high colors real quick. I can select the same color as the drum track so that it all looks the same, right? Set up my tracks the way I want it, and I'm off to go now. It's really simple to create a template. We go under the File pull-down menu. We'll look at that, Save as Template, and we can name this whatever we want. Week 3, right? It'll be placed into the Templates folder. Here we go. Let me move that down into Screen and go Save, or open up a new session. Close. And there we have it. We have the template, Week 3 template. Select that. And boom, we're back to where we started. So that's it. Templates in a nutshell. So that's this week's tutorial on setting up your digital audio workstation for buffer size, sample rate, and bit depth, and also the bonus tutorial of setting up templates in Logic. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.